Welcome to the aristocracy. How are you guys doing today? Content warning, we are going to be talking about cucks. I am not shaming anyone who is into cuckoldry, okay? I'm just demonstrating the guy who we're going to be talking about took it to some problematic areas. This is Sir Richard Worsley. He is a British aristocrat, not the good kind of aristocrat, but the bad kind, the one with an A. And at the time, the aristocracy also connected to members of parliament. They would also often be in the government and all that stuff because there was huge social inequities. So he sat in the House of Commons, and he was a very well-known politician on top of already being an aristocrat. He was a baron. He lived at this really fancy house. Look at this shit. You can go there. Beautiful house. I'd love to live there. And he married a beautiful, beautiful wife. Look at her. Gorgeous, right? Do you guys know what the number one duty was for especially a woman in the aristocracy at the time? To produce an heir, right? And also make your husband happy. So anyways, what ends up happening is they get married and he tells her, hey babe, you're so beautiful. You know, I would just love to see you. I would love to loan you out to other people. And she's like, that's kind of scary. There's a lot of syphilis going around. You know, I don't know if I want to be having sex with other people. And he's like, oh no, don't you worry. Yeah, I will just loan you out to some of my very close friends. It'll just be a one-off few thing. And it'll excite me so much that I'll be able to come in right after, okay, and give you a son. Well, I need to produce a son. That's my job. So she's like, yeah, the OG cut. He's the OG cut, right? The original. He actually couldn't get off, right? He actually couldn't get off without the idea of cuckoldry. He just couldn't do it. So she needs to produce her an heir, and her job is to get him off. That's just the truth. I think it was just natural. I think just the idea of having a beautiful wife, being able to feel so powerful that he could watch her with other people and watch I think he saw her as his property. And I think that attracted him to it. Not saying that's for all, cucks, but I think that for him, that was the main focus, right? And also that, he's breaking rules. Everyone knows it's kind of sexy when you're breaking society rules. And trust me, cuckoldry was definitely breaking 18th century social rules. That was kind of the way he kind of viewed it. Now, legally at the time, women are not considered persons. Okay, they're considered property. So they are initially property of their fathers, and then when they get married, they become the property of their husbands. She wants to make him happy. She wants to be able to produce a son. And so she's like, well, okay, I'll do what you want. So he starts basically bragging to all the members, because he's a member of the House of Commons. And he's just like, hey guys, okay, I've got a super hot wife, right? Look at her. Look at her, she's gorgeous. You want to go? I'm totally fine. No, I'm so confident in myself that I'm totally fine with you just doing her. Just go ahead. Go ahead. As long as I can go through and look at a peephole. He actually did that. He would look through this little peephole into the keyhole, straight into the door. That's actually where that stereotype comes from. Now, we know all, and you're probably how do we know all the details about their private sex life? Okay? Of this random, couple in the 18th century. Well, it all is documented in a court case. Yeah, in some ways, it's almost like he's a pimp. And she has no choice in the matter, right? She's literally owned by this guy. Even though she probably was seen as someone that had tons of wealth and privilege and all this stuff, in reality, she's almost being used as a sex slave. He loans her out to this guy. I forget his name exactly. Let me find it. I forget his name. But I'll call him Chad. So Lord Worsley loaned her out to one of his other co-workers who's also a member of parliament. And these are all really famous, well-known people. So this is upper class shit. So Lord Chad. So he loaned her out to this guy named Lord Chad. And for the first time, Lady Worsley, Seymour Fleming, Seymour, I'm going to start calling her Seymour, Bay Seymour. She's like, oh my God, I don't mind having sex with him. He's fucking hot as shit. And he liked her too. They fall in love. It becomes super romantic, and they start having an affair. And I know you're how can they have an affair? They were allowed to be having sex by the husband. He was the one that set it up. But keep in mind, from his perspective, is all according to his permission. So they were not, and then it was not supposed to get romantic or anything. So she falls in love with Lord Chad. Lord Chad falls in love with her. He's starting to learn about all the things that, that big fancy Lord Worsley was doing. And he's like, dude, that is fucked, right? You're falling in love with a lady, and you only want her to be with you. But like, she's now owned by this husband, and the guy's really powerful in Parliament and all this stuff. And on top of that, he's making her go and sleep with all these other dudes all the time, and she's getting venereal diseases. Yeah, we know about that 100%. She literally got a venereal disease. Now, I'm calling it venereal disease because at the time that's what it was referred to. They fall in love, and they decide to elope. They run away together. Richard Worsley, Dick Richard, he's kind of upset. His most prized possession just got stolen. So he starts talking to lawyers, right? And they're like, oh, like, we don't know how to handle this. We don't know what to do because technically adultery's not illegal anymore. Like, because, everyone's like a modern, all this stuff. And then he talks to lawyers, and they realize, well, legally, women are considered property, right? Like, according to right now, because we're saying women are not considered persons. And by Lady Worsley being his wife, that means that Lord Chad committed grand theft. So Sir Richard Worsley sues Lord Chad. He literally sues him, takes him to court. Like, this is not criminal court, this is civil court. So he takes him to court, right, in order to get, financial reparations for his loss and the devalue of property and all this stuff. And I think he sues him for, what was the exact number? Let me find. I think it was like 20,000, which at the time is like millions of dollars. I remember. Oh, yep, it was 20,000 pounds. And the problem is, so Lord Chad gets a bunch of lawyers too. Now, Lord Chad is not as successful as, Lord Richard. And keep in mind, at no point are we even talking about the feelings of Lady Seymour, right? She's just an object in all this, right? Her rights don't matter. So Lord Chad ends up having to go to court. And now Lord Chad is not as financially in a good spot. He ends up putting all of his money, because if he gets fined 20,000 pounds, right, 2.5 mil, he's going to get destroyed. It's going to completely destroy him. And he was an up-and-coming guy, I guess he's like the male version of, like, AOC, We'll call him Sir Dick. Sir Dick and Sir Chad. He takes her to court. So he gets taken to court, and his lawyers are like, there's nothing we can do, dude, right? You literally, like, a wife is the property of Sir Dick, and you stole her, right? You literally committed theft, and you admitted to committing theft. Like, you guys were recorded, so we can't doubt that you actually did take her. Everyone knows that you were in the hotel. Like, this is a fact. We can't argue against this. So there's no way we can defend you against this. The only thing that we can argue, the only way that we can help you in this situation, is we can argue that the theft was not grand theft. All right? Now, this is where, and I'm just warning you, we're going to get really sexist right now. Okay? We're taking it to full 18th century sexism. This is your content warning. So his lawyers, right, Lord Chad's lawyers tell him, okay, the only way we could save you is if we could say that the object that you just stole is not actually worth 20,000 pounds. It's not really worth 2.5 mil, right? It's only worth $1. And that's the only way that we can save you from this. And so Lord Chad's like, sure, do whatever you can, right? Like, because if I get charged that money, I'm done. And so, he tells the woman of the hour, right, Lady Seymour, all about this. And Lady Seymour's like, oh, it's kind of hurtful, right? That I'm being told I'm not worth 20,000 pounds and I'm only worth 1 pound. That's going to be kind of mean. Like, how are they going to have to prove that in court? That's going to feel like they're just going to be hurting my character. He's like, oh, don't worry, I'm sure it's fine. Don't worry, because we need my money in order to, like, live our happy life in the future. So she's like, okay, well, that sounds like a great idea. It's okay. I'll take you guys hating all on me if it means that we get to be together at the end of the day, right? And of course, the original husband, Lord Dick, he's the one that thinks she's worth at least 20,000 pounds. So they go to court. They go to civil court. And you have to understand the scandal, the level of scandal this is. Like, these guys are celebrities and politicians. Like, this would be the equivalent of, like, Obama versus, like, Trump, or it's like the scandal of the hour. Everyone's talking about it. There's memes about it. 18th century version of memes. They start the court case, and now you have to understand that the defense of Lord Chad is that they're not arguing that he didn't steal, because it's obvious he did. They're just saying it's only £1 worth, right? So in order to do that, they need to prove that she's only worth £1. So the entire court case becomes all about demonstrating like how worthless she was. Literally worthless. This is like the whole court case. And what's the number one way that women are, what's a woman's worth in the 18th century? But the biggest thing is sexual purity. You know, remember when I was talking about all the guys she had been forced to sleep with by, you know, Lord Dick? Well, so Lord Chad's lawyers decide to start spreading around this idea, so they start demonstrating that Lord Dick had ruined the value of his property by being a cuck. So it's like it was a whole court of slut shaming, and it's even worse than that because, of course, she didn't actually choose to sleep with these guys, right? Like, if anything, it's like slut shaming her for multiple sex trafficking and rape. Like, how fucked is this? And this is why we have so much evidence about all the details of the cuckoldry. And of course, this makes it all the way to the front news. So there ends up being like this drawing ends up being pushed here. Apparently there was like an incident. So there's this famous incident that they describe, right, in the courtroom, where he says that that whenever Lady Seymour would go take a bath, right, Lord Dick would go and find, he'd go find some of his, co-workers or something that he was negotiating with, and then he'd put them on his shoulders so that they could see into the window and look at him. And he's like literally holding one of the other dudes on his shoulders, being like, dude, look how hot my wife is, right? Like, now will you sign the bill for me? You know, he's being a cuck. So this is like this famous incident of the case, and like this picture got spread all over. It was like the biggest meme ever. They also go into the detail of the venereal diseases that she apparently had at the time. The guy, imagine from her perspective what she's looking at. Like, she wants the love of her life, Lord Chad. She wants him to win the court case so they can live their lives, right? Anyways, they end up proving very, very successfully, right, that she was actually worth just £1. And Lord Chad wins the court case. So you think, right? Oh, great ending to the story, right? Lord Dick, well, none of us like Lord Dick. And this is how cuckoldry really enters like the mainstream. Like, this is, to this day, this is why cuck is such a common thing. Otherwise, I don't know if like everyone would be using it so much as like this common insult. So because everyone's talking about this concept of cuckoldry, that's when everyone starts like, really caring about it. Lord Chad is so disturbed by the level at which his lawyers had to prove her quote-unquote degeneracy and the level of venereal diseases she'd had and all the men she'd been with, right? That he's like, so Lord Chad's like, maybe I shouldn't have kidnapped someone. Maybe I shouldn't have stolen someone that was just literally just worth £1. What ends up happening, okay, is this whole situation, everyone thought it was horrible. I mean, you guys think it's horrible. Even people in the 18th century are like, it's pretty bad, guys. They recognized how dumb this was, okay? How stupid this entire court case had been. And it actually directly leads to pushes in the parliament to actually and what soon ends up happening is women stop being viewed as property. They take that off, they start being considered as persons, like not full persons. Like obviously it'll be another 100 years until they get the right to vote. So it'll still be some time before women get the right to vote, but it was a huge, big moment in women's rights because it was a demonstration of how to everyone, right? Because even though everyone thought she was a hoe, they felt bad for her, right? They started, because keep in mind, she's not, they all recognized that she was not making the decisions herself. What ends up happening is, they realize women cannot be viewed as property, that it causes all these legal disasters, and it ends up to a disaster like this. And so women end up being, removed off of the property list, and they're no longer considered the property of men. And that court case is just, it set a huge precedent for everything and that huge push set a huge precedent for everything moving forward. And poor Seymour Fleming. I should do merch with her picture, and we should do like justice for Seymour.